There are different kinds of fear. The kind you can explain away, like a noise in the dark, or a shadow that just moves just a little too fast. And then there's the kind that stays with you, the kind that doesn't make sense, that doesn't follow rules, and doesn't leave. Tonight, I'm going to tell you three true stories shared online by people who claim these events really happened to them. Fear tingles down your spine and hairs stand on end. Mysteries unknown and tales in the dark. Are you ready? Hello? Let's start in an abandoned building on the third floor. This first story comes from a user named BurntSchmidt. When he worked for a security company, his job was simple. Do nightly rounds, check each floor, make sure nothing and no one was inside. The building was 5 stories tall, old, cold. It used to be a newspaper printing press filled with journalists, offices, movement. Now it was empty, silent, the kind of silence that presses in on your ears. Each night, sometimes around 3 or 4 a.m., he would walk into the entire building alone. On every floor, there was a small metal checkpoint attached to the wall. To prove he was actually doing his job, he had to press a device against each one, floor by floor, end to end, no shortcuts. Most of the building didn't bother him. It was creepy, sure, but manageable. Old buildings make noise, pipes creak, floors settle, you get used to it. But the third floor was different. One side of the floor was dimly lit by a single overhead light near the stairwell. The other side? Completely black. A long hallway stretched out of the darkness about 15 yards. At the end of the hallway, you turn left, walk through another corridor, and eventually reach an open office space filled with broken down cubicles. And right before that, 2 doorless bathrooms. When he shined his flashlight inside, the light would bounce off stained mirrors, cracked porcelain sinks, and white tile floors, and shadows that didn't sit right. Every time he walked that floor, he felt it, that heavy, sinking feeling, like something was watching him. One night, as he made his way through the darkness, he felt something touch the back of his neck. Not brush, not breeze, a touch. No way, I'm out. He spun around instantly, swatting at it, thinking maybe it was a spider, dust, anything, but there's nothing else. He scanned the hallway with his flashlight. Nothing. No movement, no sounds, but every instinct in his body told him he wasn't alone. He didn't finish his route that night. He turned and ran. Good man. Exactly what I would have done. As he reached the lit end of the hallway, he looked back. Near the bathrooms, he swore he saw something move. Later that night, he spoke to another guard who used to work in that same building. Before he could even finish explaining, the man interrupted him. The third floor, same place, same feeling. And then he told him something he didn't know. Years earlier, when the building was still active, a woman worked on that floor. One day, after her husband left her, she stood up from the desk, walked to the window, and jumped 5 stories down. After that, things changed. Women on the floor refused to stay past 4 p.m. They avoided the bathrooms completely. They reported hearing voices, seeing shadows, feeling watched. The other guard admitted that one night he stayed late after everyone had left. While doing rounds in the dark, he shined the flashlight down the hallway towards the bathrooms, and he saw it. A tall, black figure, slightly hunched, standing there with its back turned. And then slowly, it looked over its shoulder. He ran and never went back to that floor again. Now knowing all of this, he still had a job to do. He didn't have a choice. Night after night he returned, and every time that feeling got worse, until one night he stopped in the hallway and said it aloud. "If anyone is here, make your presence known and stop messing with me." Nothing happened, so he kept going, down the hallway, through the door, into the dark room at the end. He hit the checkpoint, turned around, and started walking back. That's when everything changed. The temperature dropped instantly, like the air had been sucked out of the building. And in that moment, he knew something was behind him. Every instinct told him not to look, to just keep walking, to leave. But he couldn't. He turned around, and what he saw was not a shadow, not a trick of the light, not his imagination. It was there, clear, defined, a figure darker than the darkness around it. It's funny because I seen something like this and that's how I explained it. It was darker than the dark. Tall, too tall, with frizzy hair, arms that hung too long, and fingers that stretched into something like claws. It didn't move at first, just stood there watching him. His brain tried to make sense of it. A person, a homeless man, someone hiding. So he spoke, "Hello?" And then it dropped to all fours. I'm out. And it charged at him. Fast, wrong. Its movements were unnatural, jerky, like something pretending to know how a body should move. He ran as fast as he could, slamming into the exit door, barely managing to get it open. And just before he escaped, he turned back one last time. Nothing was there, just a breaker box mounted to a beam. A metal door, swinging violently back and forth. Bang, bang, bang. Like something had just hit it. After that, he never walked that building the same way again. Headphones in, music blasting, running from one end to another. Weeks later, he stopped and told whatever it was to leave him alone and that he wouldn't acknowledge it anymore. And after that, he never saw it again. But whatever was on that third floor, it never proved it was gone. This next story comes from a user named TheGrandPanda. Some fear doesn't hide in the dark. Sometimes it waits right outside your door. When TheGrandPanda started college, it began slowly. A guy on her floor, at first just around, and then always around. He figured out her schedule. When she left, when she came back, where she went. Soon, he was waiting outside her door, leaving things there, watching. He followed her across campus, not occasionally, constantly. She started to learn shortcuts, back paths, ways to avoid him, but it didn't matter. He always found her. He started to ask her roommates where she was, showing up, lingering. So they adapted. They kept the light by the front door off so he couldn't see shadows inside. They distracted him so she could slip past unnoticed. And then he told everyone something that changed everything. He said they were dating, and people believed him. Suddenly, she wasn't just being followed, she was being avoided because he made people uncomfortable, caused problems, started arguments. He didn't just latch onto her, he affected everyone around him. She was trapped in a place that was supposed to feel safe, with someone who refused to leave her alone, until finally the university stepped in. Not just because of her, but because he had started targeting others too. It took time, but eventually he was gone. He left after her first year. No explanation, no closure, just gone. And that's the terrifying part, because people like that don't need darkness to find you. This final story comes from a user named springfieldswervers. Now, this last story is different because it happened when you're completely vulnerable, in your bed at night, eyes open, but your body won't move. Sleep paralysis. He experienced it often, 10, maybe 12 times a year. At first, it was terrifying. Shadow figures standing in the corners, watching him. But over time, he convinced himself it wasn't real, just a hallucination. His brain stuck between sleep and waking. And most of the time, that explanation worked until it didn't. Because sometimes they're different. There's one that comes to him, a hunched figure like an old woman, the old crone. She doesn't walk, she crawls. Ugh, I hate crawlers. They're so creepy. Slowly dragging herself closer and closer and closer until her face is inches from his. And every time, just before she reaches him, he wakes himself up. But that's not the worst part, because shadow figures aren't supposed to talk. They never do, except the one he calls the talkers. They come closer, lean in, and whisper. They tell him things they shouldn't know, personal things, private things about his life, his family, his friends, things no one else could possibly know. Sounds like demons to me. And they don't just whisper, they tell him things, bad things, disturbing things. Demons. The kind of things that stay with you long after you wake, and that's how they work. So he tells himself it's just in his mind, because if it's not, then something else is listening. 3 stories, 3 different people. BurntSchmidt, TheGrandPanda, and springfieldswervers. 3 completely different experiences. Something in the dark, someone in real life, and something that comes to you when you can't move. So tell me, which one scares you the most? Because the truth is, sometimes the things we can explain are just as terrifying as the things we can't. And sometimes they're the same thing. Have a good day, guys. Bye.